I mean, I think you need to make a list of these things, apparently, because this stuff, to me, it's pretty self-evident, right? Like, I check inside, and I've got a pretty clear sense for what I do and don't owe a person. And, you know, of the things that I don't owe a person, there's plenty of things that I would probably extend to them anyway, simply at my discretion. Like, I don't owe someone courtesy necessarily, but I would extend it to them. Or if someone were in distress that I encountered socially, I don't owe them anything. I don't owe them consolation or accommodation. You know what I'm saying? But I probably would extend it to them, and, you know, assuming it was not like an imposition. It doesn't put me out like terribly, right? But I think that recognizing that the problem is not that people are manipulative. The problem is that people are manipulable. That's the issue. And I feel like people who frequently find themselves manipulated, the problem is you. Like, the problem is you. You know, it's the delicate vase that falls off the mantle, right? Like, like at some point you have to take responsibility for the fact that your mental well-being is contingent upon not encountering an asshole, which is the same as essentially saying that my mental well-being is wrecked at regular intervals. You know what I'm saying? And other people feeling as if they're entitled to something from you that they aren't actually entitled to from you is only a problem if their misconception influences you. That, and again, so that's a my problem issue. Like, if somebody else thinks that there's something really wrong with the fact that I don't accommodate their dysfunction, that's not a problem for me unless I have a problem with other people having a problem about nothing, right? And it's, you know, just to recognize that there's like a, okay, so here's the thing. Imagine that we're neighbors and you've got a plumbing problem that's causing shit to back up into your apartment and make a big mess. Now, if I can help you with that reasonably, that's something I'd be willing to do. What I'm not going to do, though, is install a pipe between your bathroom and mine so that your shit that's backing up into your apartment can flow into mine. And that's what people do, though. They say, well, listen, this isn't a reasonable request, but they think it's a reasonable request. And because they think it's a reasonable request and I'm not willing to fulfill it, they think I'm unreasonable. So they're mad at me. So what am I going to do? Well, you're just going to let them clean their own shit up. I mean, number one, under no circumstances do you let their shit into your apartment. You don't engineer a pipe. I mean, that's not a viable solution to the problem. I'm sympathetic with people who are deluded in a way that causes them to suffer over the fact that I don't put up with their bullshit. You know, that's a sad thing when a person hasn't developed the resilience necessary to just accept my responses as they are and work with them. You know what I'm saying? And say, fuck you, buddy, or move on, or whatever, you know, or negotiate. But at no point does that sympathy for that person extend to an alteration of behaviors of mine that I know are reasonable and fair, right? Like, that's not helping that person. And I mean, I think that's one of those things, is that you think that, and honestly, I think it's one of the reasons that help generally is best. I mean, it's one of the reasons that I like to render help to people who I don't really know on a personal level, because it's somewhat possible for the relationship to be sterile in the sense that their patterns don't apply to them. You know what I'm saying? And when they do begin to apply themselves, it becomes really clear. But I would just have a very clear list of things that I do and don't owe people. It's like, what do I owe you? Well, no, I mean, so we even just think about our relationship. We've been together almost 10 years. What do I feel like you owe me? Nothing, really. Like, if you were to wake up tomorrow and feel totally different, do you owe me consistency? I don't think so. I mean, I might want consistency from you. But, like, if you woke up tomorrow and you said, I don't want to be with you, or I do want to be with you, but I'm into all this kind of wild, wacky shit now, and if you're not on board, then too bad, I'm going to do it anyway. I mean, well, do you, I mean, the thing is, you can't owe me something that it's not possible for you to give me. And it's not possible for you to give me a guarantee of consistency. Now, you can injudiciously give me a guarantee that you can't possibly, in good conscience, make, and it may actually turn out that you so happen to not violate that guarantee. But that's not a valid guarantee. It was just, you know what I'm saying? Like, I mean, I can guarantee you that Rob Lowe is going to show up at the house tomorrow and cook you breakfast, and maybe you will. But it's still, like, given, you know, That's still not a legitimate guarantee for me to have made. You know what I mean? I can't make that happen. Probably could if I try and pull some strings. But anyway, just to act as though I do. Look at that. That's a nice dog. But I don't feel like you owe me anything. And so the idea that someone would feel as though they owe a sibling, an employee, a casual acquaintance, a long-term friend, anybody, anything, like you and I are friends. We've been friends for X number of years. I suddenly, for whatever reason, don't feel like I want to be friends anymore. But we've been friends for a long time. That's not the way the sentence is structured. An intelligent person structures the sentence. We've been friends for a long time, but I don't want to be friends with her anymore. You know what I'm saying? That's the intelligent structure. And I don't understand. I think one of the key things, honestly, to overcoming a lot of this stuff is to recognize that it's slimy bullshit dysfunction within me that makes me susceptible to all of this. And all of my concerns about hurting other people, not all of them, but most of them, are just that. And I don't really care about them in many circumstances. What I don't want to do is I don't want to do something that makes me the bad guy. I don't want to become the bad guy in whose eyes, hypothetical eye, you know what I mean? Like whatever. But yeah, I'm not owed. I owe you not punching you in the face. I owe you not stealing things from you. I owe you not violating your rights. But see, very basic things. And then we take those things for granted. We just assume those things are true because they are. And it is probably good to be able to take them for granted in the sense that we just assume they're going to be honored, right? But then we enter into the arena of volitional interaction. And once we're in that arena, you don't owe me a fucking goddamn thing. Not 1 centimeter of consideration beyond non-violation of my basic rights is owed to me. And it doesn't matter if my life depends upon, right? Now, would a decent person extend it? Well, of course. If you could extend me a centimeter's worth of consideration and save my life, a decent person would, but I'm not owed it. And I think understanding that's really important, so that when somebody wants to do things one way, because there's no end to the pushing. When you cede ground to someone that they aren't owed, as though you did owe it to them, there's no end to that, right? Now, if you cede it to them graciously, and because you want to, they're not owed it, but whatever, that if you needed to say no, that you could without losing any sleep. If anything, maybe you would get more sleep as a result of having said no, right? Good for me. I can sleep well knowing that I'm not a pushover doormat with everyone else's shit ground into it. That feels good. You know what I mean? Like people go to bed worrying about whether other people are mad at them and they can't sleep. To me, it's like I go to sleep sleeping well because I'm reassured by the fact that I don't give a fuck about it. I think, thank God. Oh, look, this is a nice coyote. Oh, there's another nice coyote. They may be jerks, I don't know, but they're pretty. See those nice ears? They're pretty cute. But I think it's one of those things that when another person is under the impression that they're entitled to something, that's beautiful. Hi.
Beautiful dog. Oh my
nice.
Goodness. Look at that hair.
We can't play now.
When another person is, when I am under the impression that I'm entitled to something that I'm not entitled to, it's very likely that misconception is going to cause me suffering. And nobody is responsible for that suffering but me. Now, you see, if I feel like I'm entitled to have everyone with whom I come into contact understand that they aren't entitled to anything that they're not entitled to, well, I'm going to suffer because of that impression that I have, that I'm entitled to not encounter falsely entitled people, right? That's how it works. And I think it's really self-observation, discovering the extent to which my suffering is my own doing, makes it easy for me to wash my hands of fake, phony, saccharine, sentimental concerns for other people. That if somebody else, that like, do I want my mental well-being contingent upon a flock of clucking hens doing things they don't want to do because they have a self-concept that requires them to be the good guy or the good girl in order to keep my fragile psychological state propped up? Is that what I want? I mean, I'd rather have the whole shit fall down. You know what I'm saying? Instead of having people do anything they don't want to do. Well, see, I used to get mad. I would find out that my mom would do things or she would attempt to prevent people from communicating things to me that she thought would hurt my feelings. And I remember being so fucking angry at her because I was like, how dare you shield me from corrective feedback about how I appear to other people? Like, what the fuck's the matter with you? Like, you've written me off. You know what I'm saying? Like what a selfish and disgusting thing for her to do to her son, right? Now, I mean, she didn't put that much thought into it, so I don't think she's selfish and disgusting, but that as a behavior is a selfish and disgusting behavior, you know, that was occurring probably outside of awareness. You know what I'm saying? It was a sentimental attempt to prevent somebody from an unpleasant experience that in the long run would condemn them to far more iterations of that unpleasant experience than they would have if they could have just self-corrected, right?
I think what you're getting at is literally the problem of all of humanity now.
Well, yeah, and it's disgusting. And every person I feel that behaves this way is attempting to retain some moral legitimacy that will ultimately be wielded against an unsuspecting other. That's all it's ever about. It's about the accumulation of power. Interpersonal power in a friendship. I mean, leverage. Leverage is really just a description of power expressing itself in a certain context. That's all it is. And when you have no interest in controlling other people, one of the things that you cease being interested in controlling is their perception and experience of your behavior. I'm going to do what I need to do. I'm going to do what's right for me. Now, if people act as though there's no difference between, well, what's right for me is for me to have your computer, so I'm going to break in your house and take it, and what's right for me is to terminate our working relationship after X number of years, they act as though those things are equally selfish. It's not. It's not. You're selfish if you think that you're entitled to have a relationship persist in which the other person is unsatisfied or unhappy or unfulfilled or whatever, right? You see what I'm saying? Like, what the fuck? I mean, what the fuck's the matter? There's something wrong with you. Now, I'm sorry that there's something wrong with you, and I understand the suffering that can come with having there be something wrong with you. But it's fixable. It's a misconception. But I'm not going to... That's like saying person A has a contagious disease, and I feel so bad for them, I'm going to have them cough in my face. You know, and if I don't do that, I'm a selfish person. You know, just allow me the example, right? You see what I'm saying?
You can't have that example.
But, okay, person A has a mangled limb, and I feel so bad for them that I mangle my own limb, right? Because it would be selfish of me to do otherwise. Why transmit the suffering? You see, when bullshit grows by flowing, and when I allow their bullshit to flow into my experience, right? And I consent to its presence, and I allow it to dictate. I allow it to compromise me doing what obviously makes sense and what is obviously resourceful, right? I, at this point, have become an accomplice of bullshit, and I've magnified it. And something inside the other person says, see, they're still taking the bullshit. We need to build another bullshit factory because the demand for bullshit. See, acceptance of bullshit is a demand for bullshit. See, it's placing an order for bullshit. And there's something inside that other person that says, what? Wait, I was going to make the conversation about this, and they bought it. They fucking bought it. Are you kidding me? I don't have enough bullshit for this person. And see, the other person thinks, well, if I just take this much bullshit, well, then maybe that'll be what gives them the space they need to heal, or the space they need to, maybe they'll get through this rough patch. No, you buy the cereal off the shelf, more cereal comes. You know what I'm saying? It's like one ant. Well, I'm just feeding this one ant. There's no fucking such thing as feeding one ant. You know what I mean? It's not. It just doesn't happen. And I think that when you understand that, and people do this, and I don't understand this either. I've been over backwards for you, and you're still pushing. Well, if you find a fucker who's going to bend over backwards for you, why on earth would you ever stop pushing? Push where there's mush, and you're mushy. And you know what I'm saying? Like, what person in the world says, yeah, I found a really good mark, and she'll just keep sending me money in cereal boxes because she's a lonely person, and she's a grandma, and she's on Dr. Phil, you know what I'm saying? And she's credulous and believes that I'm the Prince of Nigeria. and I've gotten $100,000 from her, and I think that's enough. I think we're gonna wrap it up. You know what I'm saying? Like, does that ever happen? No, it's more than being against human nature. I mean, it's against the nature of the universe. I mean, you know what I'm saying? And so, I think just recognizing that there's something wrong with me if I take bullshit from someone, or if I accommodate a misconception of someone in the form of making concessions that I don't want to make, and to which I do not feel they're entitled. And then they continue to push, and I say, that's too much, that's too far, blah, 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 blah. No, it was too much and too far the first time, and you let it happen, you see? And you said to them, hey, build another factory. I'll swallow it. That's fine. Don't even fix the clog. Just keep shitting in the clogged toilet, because you just let it spill over here. It's fine. It's fine. You don't need to fix your toilet. You don't need to fix the dysfunctional turd that is backing up your experiential plumbing. Just let it spill over into my apartment. That's fine. And it's spilling over to yours. It's spilling over into the husbands. It's spilling over into their parents and their children's. It's spilling over everywhere. And they say, oh, yeah, why would I ever fix my toilet? I have no incentive. All these people are willing to take the shit. It'd be painful to fix it, and unpleasant and costly. But I live in a world where there are people who haven't yet dealt with their own stuff. And so, in an effort to seem to themselves to be a good person, or to be beyond reproach, or to be not some undesirable thing like selfish or judgmental or mean. Do you see what I'm saying?
This is literally all of government.
They'll take it. They'll just take it. And I mean, I think the thing is that the idea, and this is one of those things about kind of like group conceptions of morality that's so dysfunctional. They're eminently manipulable, and everybody who's adhering to it is attempting to earn accolade or avoid condemnation from the group. It has nothing to do with what makes sense or what's right. It's got to do with what the average moron can be induced to conclude, right? So it's like, as me as an individual, I don't want to do that. Listen, it's not working out. This coaching relationship is terminated. You're not going to work for me anymore. I'm not going to work for you anymore. We're not going to be in a relationship anymore. That's the way it is. And then it's that person's job. Now, within the context of that decision, I can be as conscientious as possible, or it seems appropriate to me to be, you know what I'm saying, in an effort to not make it more unpleasant for you than it needs to be. That's fine. That's called being a nice person. And that's a nice thing to do. But it's not a nice thing to do if it's a requirement, right? That's to my discretion that I decided that, doesn't make that big of a difference to me whether I fire this week or next week. I know this week is important, or something's happening, so I don't want to ruin it. So I'll go ahead and do it next week. You weren't owed that. I did that because I was a nice person, because I wanted to. You know what I'm saying? But now, if I fired you this week, tough shit. Tough shit. If there was some reason that it weren't possible or weren't convenient, you know what I'm saying? I don't understand. And again, the person flips out. Why? Why did they flip out? Well, they flipped out because of their weakness, you see. And their weakness exists because they tolerate it. Weakness is not just a thing that exists. You have to incubate it and care for it. You know what I'm saying? You have to look after it, make sure it stays warm. It has enough food. And there are people who remain willfully weak. But then you see strength, though, when other people don't accommodate the weakness. Suddenly, the invalid is very valid. You know what I mean? Like, the emotional invalid, here's a person that can't motivate themselves to get their shit together, but if you don't cut them a check, they have plenty of energy to freak out about it. That's sort of interesting, right? That's a misuse of psychic energy that exists. Why? Because somebody somewhere started giving them shit and never stopped. You know what I mean? And this stuff affects our you should call so-and-so. But if I don't want to call so-and-so, my whole fucking life I've been doing shit other people wanted me to do. Had to go see this person, had to call that person, had to do this because I had to go talk to so-and-so even though they smelled weird and didn't have anything to talk about at family reunions and stuff like that. I'm fucking done. I did that, right? Now I'll do what I want to do. Now, it just so happens that what I want to do a lot of the time is try to help other people be happy and successful. But it's because I fucking want to do it, There's these, it's great. There's these other adults in the world, and they contact me, and they say, hi, my name is so-and-so, and I'd like to do such and such. And I say, hi, my name is so-and-so, as you know, and I'm willing to do that for this price or for this consideration. And then we say, does that sound good? Sounds good. Okay, fine, let's move forward. And that's that, and it's volitional and it's free. But if a person has a problem, they have a problem. Now, if I have a problem with them having a problem, I have a problem, right? And why, people are very susceptible to stupidity. People are very susceptible to moronic notions about the way the world is supposed to accommodate them and the way life's supposed to go for them. And I'm not saying that I'm not necessarily immune from that. I'm saying human beings in general. It's very easy when you're feeling sorry for it. It's very easy when you experience yourself as needing something from someone. It's very easy to create the impression inside yourself that you're entitled to whatever it is. You know what I'm saying? Like when it hurts to not get it, or when it really kind of fucks you over in some way, or is kind of the last, maybe it's legitimate, but it's layered on top of a dozen other things. There is no point at which need, by virtue of its sheer intensity, translates or transforms or transfigures itself into entitlement. That doesn't happen. I've got 3 trillion turds, right? Now, at what point does that turn into money? Never. It's shit. It's just, you just get a lot of it or a little of it, And need is very similar. So I have a need on a scale of needs that exceeds every need that has ever been needed before. How much entitlement does that get me? 0. It just doesn't. You know what I'm saying? Now, probably a lot of people that will be willing to help you, and I think that's good, right? And I think it would be unfortunate if there weren't. But the unfortunateness of there not being someone who is willing to help you in a way that you aren't entitled to be helped there's no amount of unfortunateness that translate into, okay, time to coerce, time to force it, time to make it happen. It just doesn't exist. And it's all bullshit anyway. If the individual, and I think the thing too is that you're fucking people over when you do this to them, because people need to wake up. People, in order to be happy. Your existence is so tenuous when it depends upon the gullibility of others, And so if it's like my emotional gullibility, the susceptibility that exists within me to narcissistic manipulation, that's the only thing paying this person's bills. That's the only thing keeping this person employed. That's the only thing keeping the one person who's me in their friend group, is the fact that I'm a gullible motherfucker. Now, I say to myself, do I want to make it so that this person's existence keeps being as tenuous as it is right now? Because what if I get my shit together one day? You know what I'm saying? What if I get my shit together? I can do it now because I'm having this conversation with myself, and it'll be bad because I know that they're not ready for it. But what if it's much worse 3 months from now, but I'm much more determined, and so the fact that it's going to hit them harder no longer matters to me? The moment you find it out, you have to tell them, the moment that you find out something, you have to communicate. The moment you discover a truth, you must implement that truth in your life. And if you don't, you're a fucking coward, and you're going to be punished for it by yourself, and that's a message, that's a memo to me, but it's true. And this isn't like prophecy. This is commentary on what's happening right now. You look inside and you feel it happening right now. You don't have to believe, he said that if I don't do, no, like you can look in the place where things happen experientially and see if it's happening. And if it's not, forget it. You know what I'm saying? But what is this part of me inside, this diplomatic part of me that knows a thing to be true and doesn't immediately act upon it? What's that? That's a problem. Right? And that increases suffering. We want the problem to get worse before we fix it. Right? That's all that is. When's the time to fix the problem? The moment you know it's a problem, and the moment you know with that perfect clarity exactly what your next move is. You may not know what the solution is to their problem. But you know that for you, the next move is, listen, I'm not into it. It's not working. And I understand that you may want an explanation, but I have to tell you that I don't want to give you one, and I don't think that you're owed one. And so I wish you the best, and that's that. And if you demonstrate an incapacity to accept this news graciously, well, then you are bearing witness to the wisdom of my decision, right? And if you accept it, well, then you accept it. And it's great, and I hope everything's wonderful. But if you throw a temper tantrum, then I know I made the right choice. And I know at some level you know I made the right choice too. Because anyone who responds that way to somebody else doing what they think is best for them, but what about me? You know, that's sick. Something wrong with that kind of a person. And that, whatever's wrong with it, isn't going to get fixed by other people continuing to accommodate the dysfunction. That the dysfunction exists in them and feeds off of my accommodation of it. And so it's as if they have some sort of demon that's possessing them, and I'm supplying that demon with a little bit of what it needs to carry on, ruining defining that person's life. That's what's happening, right? Now people say, oh, this is hard, this is cold, you don't understand. Cowardly. You're afraid of being perceived by others that exist in your head or your friend group or your family as being unkind or unfair or there's something happened to you early in life and someone said, oh, that's this, and you don't want to be that way. Someone was stern. Someone did something that just made sense. You know what I'm saying? I mean, to me, it's like there's an itch on my leg. Do I say to myself, well, what would it be like to be the itch? I mean, how would I want to be itched? Would I want to be scratched if I were an itch? Like, you fucking scratch it. Sometimes there is dysfunction. I think another one of those things is that nothing tragic happens as a result of resourceful response that wasn't going to happen anyway. See, nobody who wasn't going to end their life or develop an addiction or whatever ends their life or develops an addiction because someone else makes a conscious choice to go their separate ways, to terminate a relationship. Do you see what I'm saying? If I do something tragic in response to a life event, right? That life event wasn't the cause. It was the end. It was the segue. It was the opportunity. The thing existed in my mind. And then an event happened. And something inside said, this event corresponds to this action, this life plan, right? And so, think of how destructive it is to live your life afraid to take action. That's obviously the right thing for you to do as an individual, because you don't know how other people's dysfunctions will cause them to react to it. Now you zoom out for a second and recognize that you are a part of the world in which that person who is being effectively crippled by dysfunction is living. And you say, okay, so what we have is we have a person crippled by dysfunction in this world in which they live, doesn't want to confront the dysfunction or fail to accommodate the dysfunction because the world's terrified of what the person might do in an event, in reaction to that. What chance does that person have of ever growing out of this stuff? No chance. No chance. What chance do I have of finding a girl that I'm going to be happy with and who's going to be happy with me? And those two things are absolutely synonymous, right? If every girl I ask to go out on a date with me says yes because they feel sorry for me, and then fucking marries me and then doesn't leave because they're afraid of what I'll do. You know what I'm saying? Like, it's a recognition. It's an unwillingness to do what doesn't work and a recognition of certain things that don't work and that never work and that won't ever work, right? And when you have those two things, it becomes very easy. You just, inside, there's this internal commitment. I can't consciously continue doing what I know isn't helpful and what I know doesn't work. And part of my not continuing to do what I know doesn't work, isn't going to work, is informing you of some decisions that I'm making, right? And I'll leave you to it, And I don't take personally any experience that you create of me in response to that. I get it. I understand that, right? I'm compassionate. Here's the thing. I understand that you may have difficulty with this, right? On the other hand, in no way is my understanding that you may find this difficult going to affect my behavior in any way whatsoever. That there is an indissoluble kernel of definite resourceful behavior that I'm going to engage in, called terminating this relationship, right? And my understanding of how difficult it is for you may cause me to layer some compassion around the execution of that behavior. But the behavior is going to be there. There's nothing. I said this in a girl that I had to break up with one time. I said, listen, I need you to know that there is literally nothing that you could say or do that will change my decision about this. So, if you need to take time or act out or be upset or whatever, that's cool. I get it. But I just want that inner part of you to know that none of that is going to have any impact on the outcome of this relationship change whatsoever. And to me, is that a nice thing to hear? No. That's fucking... Does she think I'm an asshole for saying it to her like that? Probably so. But was that useful information for her at some point in her feeling sorry for herself process? At some point along the way, when she had had enough of being sad, there might have been a voice in her head that said, well, but if you keep looking pitiful, that'll just prove how real everything is, and maybe it'll change the outcome. You see what I'm saying? That's a blessing to tell someone. Listen, never, ever, 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 ever going to happen. I can guarantee it 100%. So you might as well just move on, right? That's a wonderful thing to gift someone. Listen, I can guarantee you that you can engage in this behavior 1,000,000 times, and I will never accept it, and I will never not call you on it, and I will never just chalk it up to your delightful. It's never going to fucking happen. All right, I just want to let you know, I will never be okay with that. That will never fly in this relationship. That will never get you what you want from me, right? These are good things to tell people. This is honest information conveyed from one human being to another. I mean, and, if they can do with it whatever based on what their priorities are. They might choose to go be dysfunctional with someone else. It'd be more rewarding to be dysfunctional with. Do you know what I'm saying? But there's this strange, and I think it starts with parents that are raising children, and raising children, I imagine, is unimaginably difficult if you're prepared for it. And how many people are? And what I mean by that is if you've got the basic skill sets for interfacing with reality. I think that's what I mean by being prepared, not that you know what to do in a specific sense about everything. You know what I'm saying? But parents who are on the wire, and who the parent-child relationship is ostensibly one of pure nurturing and instruction, right? And the parent tells you the way things are, and the way you have to do things, and the right and the wrong and all of this. But the reality is that the individual to individual relationship does begin to creep in at 3 o'clock in the morning when the child's pooping in their pants, even though they know how to get up and ask to go to the bathroom or whatever. And the individual parent becomes frustrated. So the child exhibits honesty or candor or some basically useful human attribute. And the parent, because it's personally embarrassing or inconvenient or frustrating for them under those circumstances, or because they're up near their emotional threshold or whatever, rebukes the child or somehow or other communicates to the child the necessity of attenuating the expressions of whatever that character trait is. You see what I'm saying? And so this person then grows up and carries that basic kind of emotional imprint with them. Like right now, I'm not trying to nurture him. I want him to walk so we can go. But, you know what I'm saying? But I think one of the dishonesties, though, of the parent-child relationship is that veneer, that illusion that says, I love you so much that you're all that exists for me, and I would do anything for you, and I could never feel this way. My mom used to say that bullshit to me. I was like, come on now. I asked you to stop smoking in the car with me years ago. You're still fucking doing it. It's still gonna tell me you would do anything for me? Hey, with a Marlboro dangling out of your mouth? Come on, give me a break, right? I mean, she should say, you're my heart, Steve. And I say, well, if I'm your heart, stop smoking, because you're fucking me up. It's bad. But you know what I mean? But so you have this allegedly sacrosanct relationship that's pure and in which the parents just convey information to the best of their ability to the child about the way to be. But the reality is that a lot of the most significant communications occur in the context of stress or frustration. They sometimes, often even, I would say, not unusually, occur in situations that discourage some of the best human qualities, you know. Now why shouldn't the child say, look mama, look at that great big fat lady, you know what I mean, or whatever? Well, let me tell you why. Because society is dysfunctional and people have a problem with honesty and with candor, and there's this fucking bullshit called being polite that people, and so this children from a very early age are taught not to have a relationship with what's obviously true, but to have a relationship with the matrix of dysfunctions that characterizes any cluster of human beings, right? Is that interesting?
Yeah.
And so that'll fuck you up forever, because way back in your decision-making process, right, is this criterion or set of criteria that developed very early in life that was, listen, it's not just about what's resourceful. I never even heard the word resourceful when I was a kid, except for like, I don't know, Huckleberry Finn or something like, you know, some kind of very highly like contextualized kind of thing. But in terms of doing what's resourceful, doing what makes sense, you know, it was always what was justified, what was right, what was appropriate, what you know, someone, you just need to, I mean, and the funny thing too was that like bullshit injunctions to be there for your family and you know what I mean, stuff like that. And like, well, what about like if, well, I remember, I think my grandmother was telling me that like being there for your family and stuff, and I said, well, what if my dad kills somebody? Like, am I supposed to, and this is like a little kid, you know, I think it's a weird question. And it sort of was upsetting to her because it was a violation of the rule, right? And of course, she didn't think my dad was going to kill anybody, and as far as I know, he didn't. But who do you think thinks this? You know what I mean? But so you get all these kind of bullshit generic rules about the way you're supposed to behave, and they aren't sufficiently flexible to accommodate the realities of life, you know? And like the rule of concessions, I mean, if you kind of look at it, which is to say that, well, it may be appropriate to accommodate an emotionally fragile person in the way that you wouldn't accommodate somebody who was more in control of themselves mentally. Well, okay, that's true if I'm walking on the street and someone verbally accosts me who is clearly kind of deranged, right? We'll let it slide. I probably would let it slide if it was another person, because I mean, who is truly sane screams at another person on the street? You know what I mean? But what if that person who's a little off kilter works for me, right? And what if that job, what if their whole job description is to make my life easier? And a situation arises in which their presence in my life not only ceases to make my life easier, it actually makes my life harder. It doesn't just make it harder in the sense that I don't have someone more capable than they are fulfilling the job. They actually become a source of like positive net agita, right? I mean, this is the gel insert in the shoe that not only doesn't make you feel better, it actually makes you worse. You know what I'm saying? And you're paying for it all the time. And it has a personality. It's not pleasant. I mean, what fucking worldview says that that's a state of affairs that I should just acclimate myself to? Or that anyone benefits in the long term from it? I mean, is this just, what are they going to be with me until they die? Or until they retire? And is that, so the sum total of their life, you know, like the last job they had because the person who employed them had too much pity to do what made sense? How pathetic. I mean, wouldn't you rather lose your job and have to really rally and access your resources, find out kind of what you're made of? You know what I mean? I'd be pissed if I was like 70, 80 years old and I found out that my biggest benefactors actually hated me and only tolerated me and supported me because they were afraid of how they would feel if they stopped doing those things and something bad happened to me, or if I got upset. I'd be so angry because you've diminished me. You know what I mean? Like you have been a party to my diminishment as a human being. I'll never forgive you for that. You know what I mean? Like, but people don't think in these terms, and so they're not free. And I think it's one of those, it's kind of an ill-gotten gains thing, that if I'm after an ill-gotten sense of being a good person or of having done the right thing, I'm going to suffer, right? I might get that feeling, but I'm going to pay for it, like marrying for money. You know, if I'm doing good things for peace of mind. I mean, I think that doing good things flows from a peace of mind And doing good things is the same as doing resourceful things. To have this peace of mind that says, I don't consider extraneous variables, like what a crazy person might think about what I'm doing. That's sort of the world that we live in now, is that people recognize what's sensible and sane to do, but it has to be filtered through what the lunatic fringe or the deranged base is going to be capable of accommodating, right? So you have a wonderful idea committee, and so the wonderful idea, committee comes up with a wonderful idea, but it doesn't go straight into implementation. It's then got to be put through the PR department where it's ruined. You know what I'm saying? Like, okay, we've got this great plan here. Let's ask a bunch of insane morons what they think about it and take all their suggestions and incorporate it in. Imagine if someone did that with a car. But this is what people do with their life choices all the time. I know what I want to do. I want to move across the country. I want to get a new assistant. I want to change my career. I want to divorce my spouse. This is what I want to do. I know. I want to build a new life for myself. This is what I want to do. Oh, I wonder what my mom would think. I wonder what my abusive husband would think about that. I wonder what some fucking asshole on the internet would have to say about that. So you take the beautiful word of God, inspiration idea, right? That would just work perfectly if you just went with it and said, I don't know how it's going to happen, but I know that this is what I'm committed to. And everything else is on the outside. This idea is on the inside. This idea is in the inner circle. What other people think about it is not even in the club. You know what I'm saying? What would happen if you did that? What's wrong with you that you're asking yourself what idiots, assholes, and crazy people are going to think about what you do? There's something wrong with you. There's something wrong with you, right? And that's good news, because I think when you recognize that, you can fix it. Like when you're sitting there worrying about what an idiot, an asshole, or an insane person is going to think about something that you're doing. Now, I mean, those three categories may seem caustic and cynically negative, but honestly, if you expanded those categories to the point that they should be expanded, which is to say that if you included all behaviors in all three of those categories that rightly belong in them, right? If you were to have kind of an intellectually honest system for categorizing behaviors, idiot, insane, asshole, at any given point in time, there's a really good chance that a good 80-85% of people are going to be in a state of consciousness consistent with those behaviors. That's just a numbers thing, right? And so the moment that your objective is to have the approval of the majority, you've castrated yourself, you've sold your soul to the devil, you've fucked yourself, and you're eating shit all at one time. I mean, it's impossible to overstate the extent to which that constitutes a betrayal of yourself and everything that would serve you. You just can't. You absolutely just can't. Because it's such an unworthy, amorphous, moving target that gives no benefit upon hitting it. There's just, do you know what I'm saying? Mm-hmm. And there's something wrong with me if I'm aiming for it. Now, when I recognize that, magic happens, you see. Absolute fucking magic. Total fucking freedom. Fuck you, money. You have, fuck you, mental money. You're a free individual, and then you get to find out who you really are. When you don't have all of these, like, faulty, phony fucks about, what about, you know what I'm saying? People hate you for it. It's weakness. They'll exploit you for it, and they'll keep you around because of it, but they'll hate you for it. And that's why the concessions are never enough, because the sense of entitlement is never confined to what the person feels entitled to now. And this is one of those big, great kind of misconceptions. Just accommodate. We can do it. No, but there's a pattern of accommodating these entitlements. A person feels entitled. A person who does tend to feel entitled feels entitled to the thing on the other side of the edge of what they don't have, right? Like they're entitled to something they haven't gotten from you yet. Always. There might be a little window of time in between there, like eating, like the entitlement monster can get satiated for a minute, but then it gets fatter and its appetite goes up. And then it's like my 600-pound life situation, right? You have to stop this diet. You're eating 24,000 calories a day. But see, the other thing about the entitlement stuff is that these great big people that weigh, 800 pounds, they go on an 800 calorie a day diet, and they can lose 150 pounds in 2 months, right? It's amazing the extent to which a person's sense of entitlement can begin to shrivel if everyone in their life stops driving to fucking McDonald's. You know what I'm saying? And providing them with existential fast food. You know what I'm saying? I mean, and I remember what it's like to be a weak little piece of shit. I mean, like when I was a kid, I was like soft, you know, and I was angry as a result of it, and I wanted concessions. See, the thing is, like, my state that I was in caused the desires that I had to feed into and perpetuate that state, you know? And like, there were people in my life who were too weak and who lacked the character necessary to deprive me of what I wanted in that moment, so that I would be forced to kind of turn into somebody who wanted something that felt better to want, felt better to get. You know what I'm saying? And eventually I felt like I just kind of had to do it for myself. But there's so many qualities. Weakness is not honest, you know, and dysfunction isn't honest. Manipulation isn't honest. So we expect these things to be honest, though. We expect people who are weak and dysfunctional and manipulative to announce these things to us and to say, hi, I'm weak, dysfunctional, manipulative, and so I'm going to make you feel really bad if you don't do things that accommodate my weakness, perpetuate, and exacerbate my weakness, my dysfunction. What was the other one? And my manipulation, right? We expect them to come right out and say that, but they fucking don't. They appeal to the moral virtue, which is why if you have allegiance to anything other than conscious awareness and what obviously makes sense in light of having developed that conscious awareness, well, then you're fucked, you see. It's a false god. You've got one, you'll have 1,000 eventually. The moment you come down from the mountain and see the calf, you know it's over. The first time they cheat on you, you know it's over. That's not a one-time thing. There's not just one false god. There's not one secondary priority, right? Which is why you just lose your shit right then and there, definitively, and cut the cord and say fuck them, right? I mean, that's the appropriate thing to do. And I don't necessarily even mean terminating the relationship, but I certainly mean terminating the pattern, right? By not making excuses for it. So what is it? Like, is this person's behavior obviously unfair, obviously unfounded, whatever? Yes. Am I bothered by it? Yes. What's wrong with me? That's the next question. What's wrong with me? Not what's wrong with them. Because generally speaking, we know what's wrong with them. They have people like you in their life. Do you know what I mean? Who make it possible for them to be soft. Things in the ocean tend to be softer than things on land, you know? The aqueous environment is conducive to soft, non-skeletal body structures. And so if you have a lot of manipulative people in your environment, trust that the environment that is you is contributing to that, right? That there's something in the environment that isn't, which is to say there's something within myself that is not purging this, that is not functioning like a UV lamp to people who behave this way. That's what I like to do right off the bat. I mean, sometimes I'll even turn the lamp up a little bit when I know where it's going, just to see, you know, because this UV light isn't going to kill anything that I want around, right? And so here's this douche that comes into my life experience and starts telling me what to do. Well, I'm going to go ahead and give no ground on that. I'm not going to say, well, I'm going to give him about 10 feet now. I'll plan on extending up to as many as 100 yards just to give him a chance. What? If he doesn't even know how to say hello to me properly, right? The 10th conversation isn't likely to be better as a result of my conceding to the dysfunction. Now, there are people who have made a bad first impression on me in the beginning, and they did nothing whatsoever. I did nothing whatsoever to accommodate that or give them the impression that their impression was more favorable than it was that they had made on me, and it ended up being a good relationship. And on the other hand, I felt like I kind of fumbled a little bit in the beginning, but the person didn't pretend like I was less awkward than I was. You know what I'm saying? And then it turned into they didn't concede. They didn't attack me, but they didn't move, right? You see what I'm saying? Mm-hmm. And as a result of that, the relationship was able to grow. But that's that, you know, I think that if I thought that there was a volatile explosive in my house, I wouldn't, you know, tell my dogs, my kids, and the guests and company that came over, oh, careful, don't touch that. Don't get too close to that because we think it might be, you know, plastic explosive, right? The thing is, well, if we think it's volatile and likely to explode, we should remove it as quickly as possible, you know, and maybe take precautions in doing so. But let's get it the fuck out of here. Like, let's not build our life around the fact that Susan might explode if we tell her what we really think. You know what I'm saying? Let's move Susan out. Let's take Susan out into a field, and then send a little robot over and poke her, and see what happens. You know, because one of two things are going to happen. She's going to blow up, in which case I'm glad it wasn't in my house, or she's not, in which case like, oh, okay, it's fine. You know. So there's that.